If anybody needs a copy of the lesson, would you take these and pass out, Chris, for whoever needs one? We have a few extra copies for those who may not have. And the stapler is, we're out of staples. What can I say? We're out of staples. No staples were harmed in making those copies. What can I say? Okay. We're going to look at pride beginning this time, this study, and Proverbs 18 is one passage. There's many. Proverbs 18. If you'll be turning there, we'll have a word of prayer. Let's see. Michael Steinley, would you mind asking a word of prayer for us, please?
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for blessing us with another first day of the week that we can assemble together and worship you and sing praise to you and open your word and read from it. Lord, we pray that you'll be with Brother Chuck this hour as he teaches from us from your word of Proverbs. Lord, we pray that we'll open our minds so that we can understand and we can hopefully change our lives as we move forward towards the kingdom. We ask all these things in your Son's name.
Amen. Beginning in Proverbs 18, verse 10, the name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run into it and is safe. A rich man's wealth is his stronghold, and like a high wall in his own imagination. So we've got the Lord is the true stronghold. And somebody else that's trusting on their earthly wealth, they're leaving themselves open to attack. Also in Jeremiah 9 and verse 23, thus says the Lord, let not a wise man boast of his wisdom, and let not the mighty man boast of his might. Let not a rich man boast of his riches, but let him who boasts boast of this, that he understands and knows me, that I am the Lord, who exercise loving kindness, justice, and righteousness on earth. For I delight in these things, declares the Lord. So there, we've got to be careful about pride and the things. And to me, pride is really, it's an attitude that we develop. And there's behavior that goes along with that. But it's an attitude of mind and of our heart that we've got to be on guard for. Let's see, I do have, here's the definition that I believe he covered in the book, an over-high opinion of oneself, exaggerated self-esteem, conceit. The showing of this in behavior, haughtiness, and arrogance, a sense of one's own dignity of worth, self-respect. Now, is there any way in which pride can be good? I mean, a lot of what we cover is maybe some of the negative parts of pride, but is there any way that pride can be good? Yes.
When you take pride in things, when you take care of the things that you have, you honor and record the things that are important to you. You take pride in your work, pride in how you
Yes, because Jesus wants us to do those things. Anyone else? Accomplishments? So like when you went out and climbed Mount Everest, you're going to go around telling everybody how proud you are of that, right? No. It's when you do those things that Jesus wants us to do. Chris?
Well, I think it comes back to the definition you have on the screen. I think there's a difference between an over-high opinion of oneself versus that having a good appreciation for the work that you're doing or the accomplishments that you've had. And so it's maybe
That's right. And it's not something that we go and brag about. It's something that we know internally that we're doing that is true and right and what God wants us to be doing, whatever the situation may be. Chris and I had a rather good discussion about this, and I broke down and I picked up the paper. Okay, remember the paper we talked about Wednesday night? Paper in the bathroom floor that everybody walked around for a whole week, and then finally I picked it up. Now it wasn't any bigger than a couple of postage stamps, okay? And Chris told me, he said, pick up the paper. And so I'd already done that. I said, but I can't brag about it though, can I? He said, no, you can't brag about it. So, yeah, do what needs to be done. Don't let pride get in your way of serving others. And that's one thing that I want us to think about as we go through this lesson is how much Jesus wants us to love each other and to serve each other. And how pride gets in the way of doing that. Now, I've got a thought question that I would, yes, go ahead. I take off the conceit too, right? Okay, and just leave the self-esteem. An opinion of one's self-esteem. Is that would be good pride? Okay. So. Okay. Dignity and self-worth. Yes. I like that. So, what happens to us if I did not plan on this, but what happens to us if we fail to have any self-worth, any self-esteem, any kind of dignity about us? We have a feeling of worthlessness. That's what? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Daughter number 2. Okay. I do have a thought question for us that I want us to discuss a little toward the end of class. And I want you to be thinking about this as we go through this class. And it's something that wasn't discussed in here, but the question I have is, how can pride affect marriage? How can pride affect marriage? So be thinking about that, and we'll take some time to discuss that a little later on. Pride, let's see. Oh, name someone in the Bible who had pride. And let's say it's the bad kind of pride, the bad kind of pride.
Saul, later on, I'm talking about King Saul, later on in his life, Samuel told him, you were once small in your eyes, but and he got a big opinion of himself, and that led to a whole lot of things.
Yeah, he let pride into his life and then really went downhill. Pharaoh? Okay, you got done watching that, okay. And so Pharaoh, how was he proud? He considered himself to be God. Yeah, he considered himself to be God, and he would not yield to anyone, else that wanted to be God over him. Yes, Billy. Nebuchadnezzar. Tell me that story. And what did the handwriting on the wall interpret to? Many, many tickle something, I don't know. You've been, your days are numbered, and you have been weighed in the balance and found lacking, if I remember correctly. And so that was his sign. So he had let pride, and you know.
That was Belshazzar, actually. That was Belshazzar.
They had the writing on the wall.
Yeah, that was his son of Nebuchadnezzar.
Okay.
It was like the son of Nebuchadnezzar or grandson or something.
Anyway, the rulers had, and it's easy to do that. It's easy to let, you're the most powerful man in the country. You're the single most powerful man in the country. It's kind of easy to let that get a hold of you and take you to a bad place. What else do we have? We talked about pride being good, and we're going to talk about pride affecting marriage a little bit later. Pride is a sin. Let me see if I have that. Yeah, okay. Proverbs 21:4. Yeah, here we go. Proverbs 21:4. Haughty eyes and a proud heart. The lamp of the wicked is sin. Is that right? What does that mean? What does the lamp have to do with it? Proverbs 21:4.
King James says, from within, out of the heart of men, proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornication, and murders. So I think is what he's getting at there. This all comes from the heart.
It does come from the heart, the eyes of a proud heart, and when the wicked is burning his lamp, he's up to no good. I think that we might say that. And the guiding lamp, okay. Thank you. Can we say that selfishness is a big component to pride? Can we say that? I think it might be. Proverbs 30, 12 through 13. I included verse 12. There is a kind who is pure in his own eyes, yet is not washed from his filthiness. There is a kind, oh, how lofty are his eyes, and his eyelids are raised in arrogance. So even though he's, like one of those big rulers that thinks he's the greatest thing on earth, he still has sin. He still has sin that he hasn't confronted and that he hasn't repented of. Romans 1 and verse 30, there's a whole list of sins there, and right in the middle of that, Romans 1 and verse 30, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, arrogant, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents. So in that whole list there, we've got those who are arrogant, and that's one of pride's behaviors, is arrogance, and boastful. They like to, those who are boastful want you to know their accomplishments and how things ought to be done and all this. We're going to talk about that a little later too in what I call the know-it-all. Anybody here ever worked with or been around a know-it-all? Okay. I'm tempted to tell a story, but I'm not. Okay, I'm not. Mark 7:21 through 23. For from within, out of the heart of men, proceed the evil thoughts, fornications, thefts, murders, adulteries, deeds of coveting and wickedness, as well as deceit, sensuality, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness. All of these things proceed from within and defile the man. They're coming out of the heart. And as a risk of repeating myself, I've said before, when the Bible, to me, most of the time, when the Bible talks about our heart, it's talking about our emotions. It's talking about our desires. It's talking about those things that, whatever the feeling, the possession, the whatever it might be that I want. Now, when it's talking about our mind, it's talking about how we think and how we try to control ourselves. We use our mind to control ourselves, and we train our mind according to the Scriptures. We discipline our mind according to the Scriptures so that hopefully it can tell the heart to stop before you've done something wrong. So out of the heart comes all of these evil thoughts, fornications, thefts. So what do you do when an evil thought enters your mind? I struggle with that quite a bit. Am I the only one? What do you do about it? You chase it until it's in? Okay, I like that. I think about it like changing the channel. Okay, maybe I'm thinking about a bad experience I've had in the past. Maybe I'm thinking about something that some sin I might be tempted to engage in. I say, wait a minute, I need to change the channel and think about something else. I'm not always successful at doing that, but that's one of the things that I've tried to do.
Part of how I've done that is just get busy with something, just get doing something, get busy with it, get my mind distracted on something else.
Okay, yeah.
We talked about laziness a couple of times ago, and a lot of times when you're just sitting around doing nothing, that's when it,
Yeah, exactly.
you get up and go do something, work at something.
Do something worthwhile.
Yeah, there you go.
And if you can't do anything else, just stop and say a little prayer. Maybe I've been trying to refresh some of the memory verses that I used to have at Easy Recall. So I go into some of that sometimes. Okay. Pride is an avenue for temptation. An avenue for temptation. 1 John chapter 2, beginning in verse 15, I'm going to read through 17. 1 John 2:15, do not love the world, nor the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, and the lust of the eyes, and the boastful pride of life, is not from the Father, but is from the world. The world is passing away, and also its lust. But the one who does the will of God lives forever. It's an avenue of temptation when we see, some possession or some accomplishment that somebody else in the world is enjoying or boasting in, and you say, well, I could do that too. Wait a minute now. Is that really what your goal is, to be like somebody else in the world? No. Yes.
In that verse, there's something I want to bring something out.
I'm not paying him for this, okay? I'm not paying him to engage. So this is voluntary. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, there's a distinction made in that verse between lust, and pride.
Yeah.
Pride is not a sin of the flesh. It's a sin of the mind, of the spirit. It's a spiritual sin, even though it may manifest in some way on the outside. And sometimes it's the spiritual sins, the inward sins that corrupt people the most. And that, I think there's a reason why he distinguishes pride from the lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes there.
That's good.
Different
I like that. I mean, that's kind of what Jesus said. He said, you know, all these list of sins in Mark 7, they come from our heart. They come from within. Yes. It's an avenue of temptation, Proverbs 30 and verses 7 through 9. Two things I ask of you. Now, this is in chapter 30. And what do we know about chapter 30 in the book of Proverbs? It's from somebody named Agur. Was he a king someplace? Or was it King Lemuel? King Lemuel in chapter 31. And Agur was an oracle in chapter 30. Is that right? Okay. So it's not from Solomon. We have a different author here. Proverbs 30 and verse 7. Two things I ask of you. Do not refuse me before I die. Keep deception and lies far from me. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with the food that is my portion, that I not be full and deny you, and say, who is the Lord? Or that I not be in want and steal and profane the name of my God. He just wants what is needed, what is necessary, not overabundance of things or food or whatever. And he doesn't want to be so poor that he may be forced to steal, at least be tempted to steal. Let's see. That was good. Way to go. Moving on. Okay, here's this is a big list of things. I know. We'll take our time and go through these. As the young people say, we'll unpack this. Okay, we're going to unpack this. It dethrones God in one's heart. And, you know, we need to let God rule over us. We need to be in subject to his will and let him rule us through his word. When we let pride come along, we're letting somebody else take control of us. Romans 1 and verse 30. We may have read this before. I think we have. It's a list of things that Paul gives there, and in the middle of that is arrogance and boastful. One who is arrogant and one who is boastful. When we're doing that, we're not allowing God to reign over us as he ought. We tend to exalt ourselves. We tend to raise ourselves above others. Romans 12:3, for through the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you, do not think more highly of himself than he ought to think, but to think so as to have sound judgment, as God has allotted to each a measure of faith. Also, Proverbs 25:27, it is not good to eat much honey, nor is it glory to search out one's own glory. What does Proverbs 25:7 mean about the honey? Too much of a good thing is not good for you. Huh. That makes sense. You should write some Proverbs, Jim. Okay. Okay. I love Jim. Okay. But number 3 really got my attention. You develop a sense of superiority over others. You develop a sense of superiority over others. And I'm trying to recall sometime in my life when I may have done that. And maybe it's a good thing that I forgot it. You know, have any of you ever had so much pride you feel superior to others? Okay. Okay. sense of superiority. Proverbs 30:21. Under three things, and I'm going to need some help with this also. Under three things the earth quakes, and under four it cannot bear up. Verse 22. Under a slave when he becomes king, and a fool when he is satisfied with food. Verse 23. Under an unloved woman when she gets a husband, and a maidservant when she supplants her mistress. Especially verse 23. Could somebody explain that to me? The earth cannot bear up under an unloved woman when she gets a husband, and a maidservant when she supplants her mistress. Yes. It would be, at very least, it would be annoying. And I think that may be the meaning. When a slave becomes a king, a slave is not prepared to be a king. He probably won't rule well unless he's got some really good advisors to help him. It's something that's out of place. It's something that's way out of place. A fool when he is satisfied with food. I mean, when a fool is satisfied with food, he's gonna tell you how to run the world. Yes, he will. Yes, he will. He'll tell you everything that you hadn't been able to figure out, because now he becomes essentially the know-it-all. The unloved woman, when she gets a husband, she is going to think she is on top of the world, that she is as good as or better than every other woman. Again, the maidservant is someone out of place. She doesn't know. She doesn't really know how to act when she takes her mistress's place. I'm sorry? Hagar and Sarah. Okay, that was good. Who were Hagar and Sarah? Of who? Abraham. Okay, we got Sarah, the wife of Abraham, Hagar, the maidservant of Sarah. Sarah could not have children, and they kind of worked out a deal where Abraham would have a child by Hagar. Boy, what did Hagar turn into when that happened? Yeah, and so they couldn't get along. They had to send Hagar off. Yes. Leah and Rachel. Okay, yeah, that's good. Can someone name me the mother of the Samuel? Hannah. Now, what was the deal with Hannah? Who was her husband? Right, Elkanah was her husband, and so Hannah and Elkanah were happily married, living happily ever after, right? What happened? He had two wives. What's the name of the other one? Peninnah, something like that, Peninnah. And here's the deal. The Peninnah could have children, but so far, Hannah was barren. And, Peninnah, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, was, she was really making fun of and looking down on Hannah for not being able to have children. She had a feeling of superiority over Hannah in this particular regard. Thankfully, Hannah prayed to the Lord, and he heard her prayer and blessed her with the child Samuel. Becoming a braggart. Matthew 12:34. You brood of vipers, how can you, being evil, speak what is good? For the mouth speaks out of that which fills the heart. Our mouth will sooner or later tell you what's really in someone's heart. 2 Timothy 3:2 and 4. For men will be lovers of self, lovers of money, boastful, arrogant, revilers, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, unloving, irreconcilable, malicious gossips, without self-control, brutal, haters of good, treacherous, reckless, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. We become boastful and arrogant, and we allow things in this world to judge our stature before others and before God, instead of what's truly in our heart. And we look at others the same way, that, he's superior because he's got everything. He's got the trophy wife. He's got the nice house. He's got the big fancy car. He's got the latest iPhone that comes out. He's athletic. He can play golf pretty good. That's a big skill. Those are things in the world, and they're not how we ought to measure each other. It's our heart that we need to be concerned with, especially our own heart, and not the things of others. Becomes self-willed, Proverbs 13:10. The one who despises the word will be in debt to it, but the one who fears the commandment will be rewarded. Proverbs 28:5, an arrogant man stirs up strife, but he who trusts in the Lord will prosper. Proverbs 21:24, haughty, proud, scoffer are his names, who acts with insolent pride. Proverbs 14:3, in the mouth of the foolish is a rod for his back, but the lips of the wise will protect them. And Titus 1 and verse 7, describing the qualifications for those who would serve as elder or bishop or overseer. What's the other word? Shepherd or pastor. Titus 1:7. For the overseer must be above reproach as God's steward, not self-willed, not quick-tempered, not addicted to wine, not pugnacious, and not fond of sordid gain. Not self-willed. Not quick-tempered. Can't let pride in your heart if you want to serve the Lord in this capacity, which is a goal that we all should have. It prevents conversion. Matthew 5 and verse 3, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I'm turning to make sure I haven't missed something. I think I did. Okay, that's good. Sorry. Prevents conversion, Matthew 5:3. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. That doesn't sound like pride to me. That sounds like somebody who does not have pride. Matthew 18:3 and 4. Truly I say to you, unless you are converted and become like children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoever then humbles himself as this child, he is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And then we get to the Revelation 3:17. And which church is this one being addressed in Revelation 3:17? Laodicea? Okay. Because you say, I am rich and have become wealthy and have need of nothing, and you do not know that you are wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked. It's not the things that we see, it's the condition of our heart, and we've got to be careful in, be on guard that we don't allow things like that to take a hold on us. Exactly. Exactly. Let's see. Prevents confession of sins. How does pride prevent confession of sins? This was in the book. Number 7. Yeah. Number 7. Some people are too proud to admit they're wrong. When you're wrong, and you need to admit it. Humility, the last sentence, humility is confused with weakness in many people's minds. And we can't let that happen. Humility is not weakness. If we're wrong, we need to admit it and straighten our lives out and go ahead. Yes. That's a very good observation. I'm trying to think of somebody in the Bible who may have had that happen. Someone who may have been wrong but didn't even realize it and thought they was, yes.
Well, in 1 Samuel 15, where Saul was told to destroy the Amalekites,
Okay.
and he goes and makes war and captures the king and keeps the donkeys, keeps the animals.
Some of the livestock, yeah. The best of the livestock.
And Samuel comes, and Samuel's like, "Why didn't you obey my order?" And Saul goes, "But we did. The people wanted to keep these things." And, he just shifted the blame.
Yeah.
And wouldn't admit that he had failed to keep the order.
Yes. Who? Job's friends accused him of doing wrong when he didn't know of anything. Yes. Someone else? Billy? Alan? Natalie?
Jonah in the Old Testament had a sense of self-righteousness. He didn't think that Nineveh was going to repent. When they repented, he wasn't happy that they changed.
Right. I
In
mean,
the New
wow.
Testament, Saul of Tarsus thought he was doing that.
That was mine. Okay, that was mine. Okay. That's okay. I was thinking of Saul of Tarsus. Saul of Tarsus, he knew he was doing right when he was persecuting those Christians. And he had the arrest warrants that he was taken to Damascus because, was it Antioch or Damascus? Which one? Damascus? He was going to Damascus because he heard there was a bunch of Christians up there? Or was it Antioch? Anyway, along the way, he met Jesus and had a big change in his life. Big change in his life. Tower of Babel, okay. And I've wondered about that. We're going to talk about the marriage. How does pride affect the marriage here in just a second? I've thought about that, and I'm thinking, were they literally trying to build a tower so that they would have their own way to get to heaven without God being involved? Wow. They missed the boat on that. Okay. How does pride affect a marriage? How can pride affect your marriage? If you've got too much pride, you're never wrong. You certainly are not going to admit that you're wrong, and you just keep going through life thinking you're always right. Yeah, you might end up with paper everywhere. Since we're not going to let the paper go away, it turns out it wasn't actually paper. It was fabric. Fabric. Oh, so I rest my case. I wasn't going to bring it up, but on further examination, yep, it was fabric. Okay, but how can pride affect your marriage? What does it say? That's good. That's good. And contentious woman. Okay. I'm going to go through some of these verses a little quickly. We may come back to some of this on Wednesday night, but I went through and just scanned for, in the New Testament, where the Bible said one another, and how we should treat and think about one another. And I'm going to start in John chapter 13, verses 34. A new commandment I give you. This is Jesus talking to his apostles after he had washed their feet in John 13. A new commandment I give you, that you love one another as I have loved you, and ye also love one another. Verse 35, by this shall all men know that you are my disciples, if you have love one to another. And this is the agape love that Jesus is talking about here. John 15:12, this is my commandment, that ye love, agape, one another as I have loved you. So, if we're allowing pride into our life, it's going to interfere with me treating my wife, my spouse, as I ought to. May not be for a long period of time, but right then and there, it's going to prevent me treating my wife as Jesus would have me. It's going to prevent me from having that agape kind of love for my wife as I ought to. So, when that is happening, I'm not going to be serving her as I should. And it could happen in any kind of relationship, but especially I want us to think about the marriage. It's going to interfere with me serving her and treating her and loving her as Jesus would want me to. Hebrews 10, I'm just kind of skipping around here. Hebrews 10, 24, 25. Let us consider one another to provoke unto love and good works. Again, we're to provoke into love and good works. If I've got pride, I'm not going to be doing that. Verse 25, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much more as ye see the day approaching. When we're trying to provoke one another to love and good works, if we allow pride into our life, we're not going to be able to do that. The word provoke means to incite to good. I want somebody to do good. I want to encourage you to do good. Exhorting in verse 25 means calling near, inviting, invoking, imploring. If I've got pride going on, I'm not going to be doing that, especially in the marriage. It could happen in any other relationship, but especially I want us to think about the marriage. thank you for your attention. We'll pick up with the rest of this and cover the questions this coming Wednesday.